was the summer of 2019. I was 21, back at my parents' place, and thought I'd take advantage of the huge woods behind their house. Nothing special, just a spur-of-the-moment campout. By 4 p.m., I had my pack on and was weaving through thick trees until I found a little clearing. I set up my tent, cleared a spot, and lit a small fire. The fading sun spilled between the trunks, orange and heavy, as if the forest was holding its breath. As the sun dipped lower, a voice drifted through the trees, male, low, like muttering or talking to no one. It echoed strangely, impossible to tell where it was coming from. The shadows had thickened, twisting the forest into dark shapes. These woods had no trails, no campers. Hearing anyone here at all was wrong. I called out, "Hello?" But the instant the word left my mouth, the voice went silent. With only a sliver of sunlight left, I packed up quickly and pushed deeper into the woods. Branches clawed at my clothes as I rushed to find another spot. 15 minutes later, with the sky almost black, I dropped my pack among the trees and set up again. By the time the tent was pitched, darkness had swallowed everything. The silence was almost comforting. I rebuilt a small fire and tried to relax, roasting marshmallows, letting the warmth push the unease away. Hours slipped by until the fire dimmed to half its brightness. Then, the crunch of leaves behind me. Sharp. Close. From the same direction I'd heard the voice before. When I looked, everything was still again. A man stepped out of the trees, not from where the sound had come, but from the opposite side. He smiled faintly, sat down by the fire like he belonged there, and held his hands out to the flames. When I asked if he was lost, he only said, "No." His tone shifted colder when I asked if he'd been the voice in the woods. My stomach dropped. A stick cracked behind me. Someone else was there. When I turned back, the man by the fire was staring at me with eyes that looked cold and empty. My heart pounded. I bolted into the darkness. Behind me, I heard them speak to each other, then footsteps crashing after me. I knew these woods well enough to navigate even in the dark. I cut through the trees, reached the road, and didn't stop running until I was back at my parents' door. The next morning, police went to the site with me. Everything, my tent, my fire pit, my belongings, was gone. This happened in late summer of 2021. I had been going stir-crazy at home and decided to do something different for a weekend. A friend told me about these old fire lookout towers you could rent. They were scattered in remote parts of the state, originally built to spot wildfires back in the 1930s. I booked one. It was deep in the forest, miles from the nearest town. When I finally arrived late in the afternoon, the tower stood tall above the treetops. Weathered wood, narrow ladder, windows on all sides. There wasn't another soul around. At first it felt freeing, like I had the whole forest to myself. Inside, the cabin was simple: one bed, a desk, and wide glass windows on all four sides. By the time I unpacked and lit the little propane lamp, the sun was gone. The view at night was unreal, just endless black forest beneath a starry sky. The silence was so complete that I could hear my own heartbeat. But then, somewhere far below, I noticed a light, a small and flickering glow deep in the trees. I thought maybe a hiker had set up camp. But what unsettled me was the way it moved, swaying gently, like a lantern being carried. The next day passed quietly. I hiked a little, read a book, and by evening I was back up in the tower. When the sky darkened, I caught myself searching for that same glow, and I found it. Same place as before. Only this time, there were two separate lanterns drifting between the trees. They didn't move like normal campers. They didn't stop. They didn't flicker out. They just kept circling at the base of the tower, slow and deliberate, never venturing closer, never leaving. That night I barely slept. The air inside the tower felt too thin, too still. Around midnight I thought I heard something. At first it sounded like wind pushing through the trees, but the longer I listened, the clearer it became. low, steady, weaving up through the forest like smoke. I pressed my ear to the wooden floorboards, and I swear I could hear it rising from below the tower. Voices, at least 3. And though I couldn't make out words, I knew without a doubt. They were whispering to each other. By the 3rd night, I was on edge. Every creak of the tower made me jump. Every time the lamp flickered, my chest tightened. When the lantern lights returned, 3 this time, they didn't just circle. They stopped at the base of the tower. For hours, the glow of those lights stayed perfectly still, as though whoever held them was waiting, watching. And then I heard the sound that still haunts me, the metallic creak of the ladder. Something was climbing up. I didn't wait to see who or what was climbing. I grabbed my pack and scrambled down the opposite side of the tower, nearly slipping on the rungs. The forest swallowed me as I ran. I didn't look back. I didn't stop until the glow of the lanterns faded completely behind the trees. By dawn, I stumbled back onto the dirt road that led to my car. I drove straight home shaking, exhausted, swearing never to go near those towers again. Later, I tried searching online for stories about that tower. Most people said it was beautiful, peaceful. But buried in a forum thread, I found one comment. It said, "Never stay more than 1 night. By the 3rd, they come to see who you are." I don't know who wrote it, but I believe them, and to this day, I don't know who was out there in those woods with lanterns, or why they were waiting at the base of the tower. This happened in the summer of 2020. I had taken a week off work to clear my head, and I figured there was no better way than to go hiking alone. The forest preserve I chose was massive, tens of thousands of acres of wilderness, crisscrossed with marked trails. I planned to spend 3 days hiking, camping along the way, nothing too crazy. The first day went smoothly. Wide trails, sun filtering through the leaves, birdsong in every direction. I felt safe, but by late afternoon, I noticed a faint track branching off the main path. It wasn't on the map. Narrow, overgrown, and for some reason, I felt pulled to follow it. The deeper I went, the darker it got. The canopy overhead seemed thicker, blotting out the sky. The air felt heavier, like I had stepped into a different forest altogether. At first, it was small things. The way the trees bent slightly inward, how the trail seemed to curve when it shouldn't. Then I noticed something nailed into a trunk, a scrap of fabric, torn, faded. A few yards later, another tree, this time with something carved into the bark. Not initials, not a heart, just a shape, a spiral. By the time I saw the 3rd marker, a bundle of twigs and bones tied with twine. I knew I should turn back, but the trail seemed to pull me forward. By evening, I was too far in to turn around. The trail didn't end. It just kept winding deeper. My legs were tired, so I stopped at a small clearing. I set up my tent, built a small fire, and tried to push the weirdness out of my mind. The forest here was quiet, too quiet. I couldn't hear birds anymore, not even insects, just the crackle of my fire and my own breathing. When night finally fell, the darkness felt thicker than anywhere I'd camped before. I lay in my sleeping bag, staring at the roof of the tent, listening. For a while there was nothing. Then, faint footsteps, soft, pacing. They circled my tent, slow and steady, like someone was walking in deliberate loops. I held my breath, waiting for them to stop, but every time I thought they had, the sound would pick up again on the other side. I finally whispered out, "Hello?" The footsteps stopped. The silence was worse. Somehow I slept. But when I unzipped my tent at dawn, my stomach dropped. Around the fire pit, laid carefully in a circle, were tokens, little things like I'd seen nailed to trees the day before. Bones tied with string, bits of fabric, stones stacked in tiny towers. I hadn't heard anyone approach in the night, but someone, or something, had been there, watching me. I decided I was done. No more exploring. I packed my gear and started back the way I came. But when I reached the spot where the trail had split off from the main path, it wasn't there. The underbrush was solid, no sign of any track. I tried doubling back, retracing my steps, but every turn looked the same. Trees twisted, shadows leaning. The air grew colder the longer I walked. My chest felt tight. And that's when I realized the forest was quiet again, too quiet. By some miracle. After hours of wandering, I stumbled onto a dirt road. From there, I made it back to my car. I didn't relax until I was home, but when I plugged in my phone to charge, I noticed something. My camera roll was full. Dozens of pictures, all from the night before. Blurry shots of the trees outside my tent, the ground littered with bones and stones. One photo was of my own tent, taken from just a few feet away. I don't remember taking a single one. I've camped in dozens of forests since then, but I've never gone back to that preserve. I still don't know if the hollow path was real, or if it was something else entirely. But I know one thing. If you ever see a trail that doesn't appear on the map, don't follow it. If you made it this far, thank you for listening. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe if you enjoy these true stories from the dark. I share a new one here every week, so be sure to come back. I want to know something though. Where are you watching from right now? And what time is it for you? Midnight, early morning? Maybe even out in the woods yourself? Leave me a comment. I'll be reading them. And who knows? Maybe your story will be the next one whispered here.